Good morning, modern witches. Welcome back to Lupin Hollow. I'm the Witch of Lupin Hollow, and I'm your host. So today we're talking about kind of a big, kind of touchy question. So we're talking about why coming out of the broom closet is going to make you happier. To be clear, I'm not saying that if you're in the broom closet, you're not happy, nor am I saying that you can't be a real witch if you're in the broom closet or anything like that. Mostly because I was in the broom closet until pretty recently, in at least parts of my life. Today I just really want to kind of share a little bit about my story and how I came out of the so-called broom closet and why it was so powerful and why I know it's going to be so powerful for you when you get to that point in your path too. I started my path about 8-ish years ago. I started practicing on the Sabbats. I started practicing on the full moon. It was a slow process. There wasn't nearly the kind of information out there that there is now, but I really felt drawn to it. I'm really called to this path. And so I was really excited to, be on this path, to start my first grimoire, to do my first rituals. And I had a lot of, success in my path early on. I had a beautiful grimoire that I had constructed. I had some success with spells and rituals. I felt really connected. And then I started a blog to kind of keep myself on track, to hold myself accountable, share what I was doing. And I actually started a magazine as well. I had an online magazine for a while. I was very busy, very involved in this community, but there wasn't a huge community to begin with. And I was basically completely in the broom closet, except I think for one of my best friends. So then I'd practiced for a couple of years, and then I transferred to university. So I had been at community college at that time. And so I transferred to university and I was commuting. Had a lot more classes, a lot more homework, and I just didn't have time for the blog anymore. And so I decided I was actually going to shut it down, mostly because I just didn't want to abandon my followers and my readers. And so I really, closed the doors. I shut the blog down. It was still live and active, but there was a notice that, there would be no new content. And I think I did about the same thing with the magazine. So, I kind of closed it all down and moved on. I was in a new phase of my life. And so about that time, I really stopped practicing too. I didn't have time. I was, missing the full moons. I wasn't feeling drawn to it as like I had. I still had a lot of my books and I still had my grimoire, but I was kind of like, well, I think maybe I've kind of outgrown this. So that was 2013. Then in 2015, I graduated from college, had my degree. I was getting ready to move out of my parents' house. I actually dismantled my grimoire and threw it away piece by piece because I didn't want anyone to see it. The fear, the things that we become afraid of when we look back on them often seem kind of silly. I got rid of all of my witchy stuff, what little I really did have, because I really had lived in the broom closet while I practiced for 2 years. It just felt like this old, kind of outdated part of myself, like something that I had once done and that had been fulfilling, but that just wasn't where I was anymore. From there, I thought that I was done practicing, that I didn't consider myself a witch anymore, that this was just something that was in my past. And then tragedy struck. A couple months after I graduated from college, my house burned down in a wildfire. Pretty traumatizing, as you can imagine. I had just a lot that happened in that period. Every single aspect of my life changed in the space of about 2 months. So I started a new job, my house burned down, we rented a house, or the house that we live in now. We signed the lease one day before Halloween, before Samhain, which was crazy because months before the fire I had said, I hope that, I'd really like to have a house lined up and all settled by Halloween, which we did. There was just a lot of obstacles in the way that I hadn't expected to manifest. And so we moved into our new house. Things were still very discombobulated. My life, like I said, every single aspect of it was different than it had been 2 months prior. And so there was a lot of settling in to do. And, decorating my space has always been really important to me. I'm a Taurus, and having that sort of comfortable home base, that sacred space, is really important to me. But we lived in this house for about 6 months before I ever really hung much on the walls. We had a few photographs and things, and that was it. And one day I kind of woke up and realized, gosh, it looks like nobody lives here. There's nothing on the walls. There's no art. There's nothing of us. And so I started decorating the house. And there was a big going out of business sale at a local craft store. And so we were going, there was, crazy discounts. We were getting candles and all kinds of stuff. And I found this like really cheesy palmistry poster. And I found a frame that fit it exactly. Couldn't really put my finger on why I wanted it. I was just like, this really feels like something I want. It wasn't the colors we were decorating the house in. I had no particular spot I planned to put it. I just wanted it. And so I bought it and I took it home and hung it up on the wall. And it was that purchase that really kind of sparked my interest again. I was like, I wonder what's kind of going on in the witchy community. And so I started to investigate. I did some Googling and I was shocked and amazed to discover how many amazing blogs and writers and books and all sorts of things were out there that hadn't been out there just, 2.5 years before. And so I decided, you know what? I think it's time, because somewhere in the back of my head, I had always had this concept that I would start another blog and it would be called The Witch of Lupin Hollow. And that I would do that when I had a house of my own. And that I would hang a little sign on the garden gate that said Lupin Hollow, and then I would know it was time to start the blog again and to start practicing again. Even though most of me had said, no, I'm done practicing. I'm no longer a witch. This isn't my path anymore. There was this little piece of me that had always known I was going to come back to it when I really look back and think about it, even though I don't think I recognized it at the time. But in that moment when I bought that palmistry poster and took it home, and that week when my interest was piqued again, I realized that I had a home, and that home meant something a little different than I had once thought it did, given I had just lost mine. And so I decided, you know what? This is Lupin Hollow. Lupin Hollow is wherever I go. It doesn't matter if I own my house. It doesn't matter what my house looks like. It is Lupin Hollow. And so I started a new blog, and I started practicing. I started journaling again. I started doing moon rituals, and it felt so right. So it's like January 2017. I really fully recommit. I'm practicing fully, and I'm being open about it. I wasn't really in a place yet where I wanted to be all that open with other people, but, the people closest to me who I saw the most, I was going to be open with. So I started practicing again, fully, more than I had even the year before. Then I met someone wonderful who I'm still with. Right from the beginning, I told him about my path. I shared my blog with him, let him decide if, this was someone he wanted to be with, and it was. And he has always been incredibly supportive of my path, even though it's not his path, but that's okay. He knows that it's my path, and that it works for me, and that it feels supportive for me. And then from there, it started to open up the rest of my life. So I was sort of forced out of the broom closet with my colleagues at the time. Another long story, but there was another fire, and I was working from home, and I had asked a coworker to email me something from my computer at work, and I forgot that I had Chrome and Firefox installed on my computer at work, and I used one for work stuff and one for personal stuff. And I didn't tell her which one to open, so she happened to open the one that I used for personal stuff, and so she emailed me from my Lupin Hollow email, which was a little bit of a shock to receive in my own inbox, and I realized, of course, immediately what had happened. And so I was sort of forced out of that broom closet, because she, of course, asked me the next time she saw me, hey, what was that email that I emailed you from? What's the Witch of Lupin Hollow? And so I had to explain, and, from there, I realized that I didn't care what people thought, because not everyone at work was necessarily supportive. And, that's their problem. I got to continue living my life without worrying who knew what, and without caring what they thought about it. And it was really empowering, and I realized, you know what? I'm going to start doing this more in my life. I'm going to start being more open and sharing my path more. And so it took me a while. But at this point, where I am now, pretty much everyone in my life knows about my path, at least on some surface level. Everyone pretty much knows about my website. For me, the website is an easy way to share my path. I can send someone a link and they can explore it for themselves and ask questions if they so choose. So that's what works for me. But I've discovered in talking with more and more of you that most of us who have started to come out of the broom closet or fully come out of the broom closet, we've had a positive experience. And I'll be honest, I live in a pretty open-minded place. But even if you live in the most rigid place, I find that there is a witchy shop in almost every weird little small town. Maybe it doesn't call itself a witchy shop, maybe it calls itself a rock shop, but they've got something spiritual in there. Pretty much every place I've ever been to has something witchy about it, some spiritual element, some haunted building. There is something in your town that is witchy. I just challenge you to find it. And I also challenge you to figure out who else in your area is witchy besides you. Because even if you live in the smallest, weirdest little town, which I did growing up, there is always another witch. Guaranteed. I'd put money on it. And there was in my weird little small town too. And there is always someone to connect with, even if you're not open with that person. Just knowing that there is someone else out there, opening your eyes and being open to find them is so powerful. And that totally counts for online. Even if you can't identify the other witch in your town, there is definitely someone online to connect with. There is so much of a witchy community out there that the more we start to open up and the more we start to share our paths, the more people like us we attract to us, and the more we get to share, and it's this endless snowball where we just get to share more and more and be shared with, and that is so powerful. And do you know why it's happening now? It's because of the Pluto and Scorpio generation. Those of us born between, I think it's 86 and 95, all have Pluto and Scorpio. And so we are the generation that is bringing witchcraft into the mainstream, that is saying, no, you don't get to push us into a broom closet. You don't get to judge us. You don't get to tell us you don't respect our path. This is our path, and you're going to be okay with it. And honestly, even if you're not okay with it, we don't care. We don't care. We care about what fulfills us, and we care that we're going about it in a way that is meaningful and makes sense to us. This generation is really doing the work to bring witchcraft into the mainstream, to make it okay to be a witch, to make it not only accepted, but understood and embraced. And even if you don't understand it, to get you to ask questions, to get you to respect something you don't understand. Because respecting something you don't understand is pretty much the single most powerful thing you can do, and it's not always in human nature. But at the end of the day, we're all capable of it, even if it's not necessarily our knee-jerk reaction. And so the Pluto and Scorpio generation is making it okay to be a witch. It's not about making it cool to be a witch, to be clear. It's about making it okay to be a witch, although it's pretty cool to be a witch. But it's also about changing the collective understanding of what it means to be spiritual. It's about unveiling and uncovering secrets. It's about stepping out of that broom closet and owning who you are and not caring how people judge you, not caring what they think, and really being willing to be in that space, being excited to be in that space where you get to be who you are and not care what anyone else thinks. So that's why coming out of the broom closet will make you happier, because if you choose to do it, and if you're in the right space where you're ready to do it, or even if you get kind of pulled out of the broom closet like I did, regardless of where you're at, taking that next step is going to be taking one more step towards freedom, towards expressing who you are, towards living in alignment with your spiritual path in all aspects of your life. Living in alignment with your spirituality at home, at work, with your friends and with your family, with your coven, if that's what you have, if you practice with other people, living in alignment with your path in every situation. Take the next step so that you can really start to fulfill those needs within you. For community, for freedom, for a lack of secrecy, for unveiling what you've kept hidden, what's been hidden from you. So that's my soapbox for today. Comment below. Tell me, have you come out of the broom closet? Are you scared to come out of the broom closet? Why? What's holding you back? If you want support in either coming out of the broom closet or figuring out what the right way to do it is, figure out when the right time for you is, or if you're just interested to find out whether you're part of the Pluto and Scorpio generation and more about what that means, send me an email. I would love to hear from you, and I would love to chat with you about your path. Would love to talk with you in other places too. You can always send me a DM on Instagram. I just want to talk with you about your path and about taking those next steps towards really being free and really living in alignment. So comment below, tell me what you think, and make sure you follow the channel so that you can be notified whenever I put out a new video. All right, I'll see you next week.